He was killed in 12 seconds, and he came back. Back in the same puddle. Back with green skin and curved claws instead of hands. He had been the last entry in someone's experience log, and now he looked at his health bar and saw something no one was supposed to see. 12 seconds ago, a boot had pushed him into the mud, and a blade had sliced between his ribs. The pain was real. Not in-game. The world went white, then black, then back to mud. And here he was again in the same puddle with a full health bar. The players in gleaming armor had already walked down the path. They didn't even look back. To them, he was half a line of experience in a log. A goblin. Level 3. Class, Goblin Scout. Disposable. He sits in the mud and looks at his hands. 4 fingers, green skin, curved claws. Height, 130 centimeters. Flat nose, pointed ears, fangs protruding from his lower jaw. For 7 years, his name was Chen. For 7 years, he broke other people's games for a salary and soul. He looked for bugs, wrote reports, and fell asleep at his desk after 30-hour shifts. The last thing he remembers is a line in a report. The entity respawns before the death animation completes. Low priority, will not be fixed. Then darkness. Then this filth. And this is where the strangest part begins. His status bar is flickering. 1 frame out of 60. The rhythm doesn't match the standard. Any normal person wouldn't notice. But Alex had been staring at this kind of thing for 8 hours a day for 7 years. He slowly stretches the goblin's mouth into a crooked smirk. He snaps his fingers in front of the bar. It flashes again. Same frame. Desynchronization between the image and the server state. A classic bug. He's seen this 100 times. The object shows one thing, the server calculates another. And that means a data conflict. And a data conflict is a hole. And a hole is an opportunity. An opportunity that might just pull him back after death. His stomach twists with hunger. He pulls a pale root from the ground and gnaws on it. The bitter, tough fibers get stuck between his fangs. But the hunger recedes. He chews and pieces the facts together. He died in the real world. Woke up in the body of an NPC goblin. Died here and came back. With his full memory. His character contains an error. And that error him among the living. He stands on his short, crooked legs and walks away from the farming trail. Into the bushes. Through the undergrowth. Branches scratch his face. He stumbles, falls, stands up, stumbles again. The goblin body is weak and clumsy. 3 strength, 2 endurance, 4 agility. The stats of a training dummy. He steps out into the clearing and freezes. 5 dead goblins, scattered like rag dolls. One is missing an arm, another's head is twisted to the side. His kin. Killed for experience. They won't return. They don't have his bug. He sits down next to the smallest body. Maybe a teenager. Maybe a child. He closes the goblin's eyes. His hands are shaking. Then he stands up and walks on. By evening, he squeezes into a narrow crevice in the rock. He presses his knees to his chest. 2 moons rise above the world, 1 silver, 1 greenish. The stars are large and bright, like in a high-resolution game. Because this was a game, or had been, once. He cries quietly without a sound. The tears are warm on his green skin. He gnaws on a second root and cries. The first night in the body of a monster. In the morning, a rat the size of a cat steps on his foot. He crawls out and stretches his neck. His body aches from the night spent on bare rock. Fog lies over the hills like milk. A low-level farming zone. Mobs from level 1 to 10. Newbies come here to grind for experience. Only now, he is the experience. That day, he is killed twice more. First, a level 15 archer shoots through his shoulder as she passes by without even stopping. Then, a group of 4 corners him like a beast. An icy arrow pierces his back. A white light, 12 seconds. Mud, and a new heaviness. After each death, for 20 minutes, he is weaker, slower, duller. It's as if his brain is rebooting and not all processes are starting up. He lies in the mud and waits for the echo delay to pass, and decides not to check the cumulative effect just yet. On the second day, he finds a village. 6 houses, a well, vegetable gardens. Peasants, people, not goblins. A man with a pitchfork meets him and looks at him the way one looks at a cockroach, with disgust and a readiness to strike. Alex raises his empty palms. He says he means no harm. The pitchfork doesn't come down. A woman from the house calls out that he's just a minor mob and he'll leave on his own. He leaves. For 24 years, Chen from Seoul loved spicy noodles and old automatic weapons. Now he's a cockroach being chased with pitchforks. On the third day, everything changes. He's sitting under a table in a tavern in a larger village. He made his way in through a hole in the wall from the kitchen side. It's warm in here and smells of food. A paladin enters, white armor with gold trim, level 67. He sits down, orders an ale, and complains to the archer who's joined him. Stuck on the Tomb of Whispers. The third-floor boss, a dark mage, wipes out the entire party in one hit. No magic resistance helps. 6 attempts, a pile of potions, and nothing. And a process kicks in Alex's head, one that's been running for 7 years straight. The boss controls the area. An area of effect attack from the center of the room. Instant damage with no dodge. He knows how they program that. The attack is tied to a raycast from the central point. The raycast checks the line of sight. Static objects block it. Pillars, columns, decor. Tombs of this type are symmetrical. So he needs to stand behind a pillar. But not just any pillar. The coordinates are tied to the grid. The second pillar on the left in the third room provides maximum cover. He crawls out from under the table. The paladin drops his mug. The archer reaches for his bow. A small, dirty goblin stands before them and speaks in a calm voice. Stand behind the second pillar on the left in the third room. The boss's attack hits through the center. The pillar blocks the raycast. Stand behind it and attack until the boss runs out of mana. The paladin asks who he is. Alex thinks for a second. I'm a bug reporter. Get out of here. The paladin exchanges a glance with the archer, stands up, and leaves. Alex crawls back under the table. 2 hours later, the door swings open. The paladin is in the doorway. In his hands, a two-handed sword with a purple glow. Behind his back, a shield with a skull. His bag is full. He walks over to the far table, bends down, and looks underneath. He places a small pouch in front of the goblin. 50 gold pieces. For a third-level goblin, that's a fortune. Do you know anything else? Alex pulls out a rusty knife and draws on the wood. Lines of a room layout, corridors, the Rusty Crown dungeon. The second boss is impenetrable from the front, but the texture of the left shoulder pad loads with a delay of 0.2 of a second. So there's no hitbox there for 0.2 of a second after every turn. Hit him at that moment. The Caves of White Mist. The traps on the third level trigger based on the player tag. Send your pet forward, and the traps will remain silent because it has a different tag. Tower of the Shattered Sky. The rune puzzle on the 5th floor. Officially, you have to collect the runes in 30 seconds. Unofficially, pull out the third rune and put it back upside down. The system only checks for the presence of the rune, not its point. The upside down one gives an error code. And the developer foolishly coded the error code as a successful completion. The paladin sits with his mouth agape. The archer at the next table is listening. So are the landlady and the maid. Alex has 340 such solutions. He knows how game designers think, where they cut corners where they forget to check, where they put a placeholder and write that they'll fix it later. They don't fix it. Ever. The paladin puts down some more gold and promises to return tomorrow. When the tavern empties, Alex approaches the landlady and places a single gold coin on the counter. The old woman looks at the coin, then at the goblin, then back at the coin. There's a room in the attic. It'll do for a goblin. He climbs the stairs. The bed is hard. The blanket smells of dust. For the first time in 3 days, he sleeps not on a rock. For the first time in 3 days, he is warm. He lacks the strength of a weapon-class ally and even a normal body. But he has eyes that see glitches, a head that remembers how games crash, a body that returns after death, and 50 gold coins. It's a start. A small, dirty goblin start. But a start. He falls asleep with a crooked smile on his green face. The morning began with a scream. Alex rolled out of bed and hit his head on the low ceiling. Someone was yelling downstairs. He went down the stairs and saw the tavern owner. She was standing by the door waving a broom. A player was standing in the doorway, a warrior in heavy armor. Level 42. 2 more behind him, a mage and an archer. They wanted breakfast. The landlady said the kitchen wasn't open yet. The warrior said he didn't care and that he'd pay. The landlady said it wasn't about the money but that the porridge wasn't ready. The warrior pushed her aside with his hand and walked in. Just pushed her aside, like you'd push a chair. The landlady staggered and grabbed the door frame. None of the 3 paid any attention to it. Alex stood on the stairs and watched. That's how it works in this world. Players move NPCs with their hands, like furniture. He made a mental note and went back upstairs. He had things to do. First, scout the village. He climbed out through the attic window onto the roof and looked around. The village was called Quiet Hills. 14 houses, a tavern, a blacksmith shop, a general store goods, a well, 2 vegetable gardens, a palisade around the perimeter. The palisade was decorative. Alex figured that out right away. Posts of the same height, the same distance between them, the same texture. It was an asset the developer had copied in a circle. It most likely had no physics. Any player could walk right through it. But the NPCs behaved as if it were real. They only walked through the gate. The program dictated that to them. Second, the population. He counted 23 NPCs, all humans, not a single goblin. Peasants, a merchant, a blacksmith, the tavern owner. 2 guards at the gate. The guards were level 8. That meant nothing. In a fight against a real player, they'd last about 10 seconds. Third, the farming zone. Quiet Hills was surrounded by fields where mobs roamed. Goblins, slimes, wild boars, all low level, all for beginners. Players came here every day, killed mobs, gained experience, left. The next day, the mobs appeared again, an endless cycle. Alex climbed down from the roof and walked over to the bulletin board. Quest sheets were pinned to it, standard ones. Kill 10 goblins, collect 5 boar hides, bring 3 slime cores, reward, copper coins and basic gear. He read and shook his head. Quest to kill his own kind on the board in the center of the village, out in the open, mundane, like an ad for milk. He returned to the tavern. The paladin had arrived as promised. He was accompanied by 2 others, the archer from yesterday and a newcomer, a level 54. They sat down at the table. Alex crawled out from under his table and approached. The paladin's name was Renard. He turned out to be one of those players who got stuck here after the collapse 7 years ago. In the real world, he was 19 when the servers crashed. Now he's 26, but his character's body doesn't age. Renard told the basics. 7 years ago, the Eldrasil online servers ceased to be servers. The world became real. 12,000 players found themselves trapped inside. Since then, the number has dwindled. Some died, some went mad, some ventured into the wildlands and vanished. Now there are about 8,000 active players. They've banded together into guilds. There are 5 major guilds. The largest and most brutal is the Black Log Guild. Their leader is Garrett Voss. They control the farming zones and trade routes. Alex listened and sorted through the information. 8,000 players, 5 major guilds, 1 dominant one. A classic power structure. Renard continued. NPCs began to become self-aware 3 years ago. Not all of them. The process was slow and unpredictable. First 1, then 10, then hundreds. Now, roughly 1 in 5 NPCs in populated zones is considered awakened. They remember that they were created. They remember their scripts. They remember repeating the same phrases for years. Some have come to terms with it, others haven't. Alex asked about the goblins. Renard fell silent. Then he said that goblins are the lowest of the low, the lowest caste. Even among self-aware NPCs, goblins are considered something wrong. They're killed more often than anyone else. They're worth less than anyone else. Most of them aren't self-aware at all. Those who are self-aware quickly go mad because self-awareness involves understanding their own position in the food chain. Alex nodded. He knew this from experience. He asked about the dungeons. Renard perked up. Dungeons were the main source of resources and progression. There were hundreds of them across the continent, from simple caves to massive fortresses, each with its own bosses, each with unique loot. The problem was that after the collapse, the dungeons had become more dangerous. The mobs inside had become smarter. The traps had become deadlier. Some dungeons that used to take an hour to clear now required weeks of preparation. Alex pulled out a dagger and began sketching on the table. He drew a simple table. On the left, the dungeon's name. On the right, its difficulty level. At the bottom, notes. He asked Renard to fill it in. Renard spent an hour filling it in. Alex memorized it. 30 dungeons, different levels, different types. He recognized some by their descriptions. Standard archetypes. A cave with traps, a tower with puzzles, a fortress with waves of mobs. Every archetype had typical weak spots. He knew them all, not because he was a genius, but because for 7 years, every day he'd read battle reports on games with the same archetypes. Patterns repeat. Developers are equally lazy. They make the same mistakes. If in one game a boss's raycast doesn't pass through a pillar, there's a 70% chance the same thing will happen in another game using the same engine. By noon, he had a map. Not a physical one, a mental one. 30 dungeons. At least 2 potential exploits for each. For some, 5 or 6. Not all verified, many theoretical. But theory based on 7 years of practice is almost practice. He named his price. 10 gold for advice on a single dungeon. 50 for a full breakdown with a map and tactics. 100 for personal escort. Renard choked on his ale. 100 gold for a level 3 goblin escort. Alex said that escort meant he would go with them, die a few times, scout the route, and return with precise information on every trap and every boss. Free reconnaissance at the cost of their own lives. Renard thought it over. Then he nodded. They shook hands. A green palm and a human one. First contract. That evening, Alex sat in his little attic room counting money. 60 gold coins. 50 from yesterday, and 10 as an advance from Renard for the first consultation. He spread the coins out on the bed and looked at them. Gold in this world was real. Heavy. Warm. He picked up a coin and held it up to his eyes. On the obverse was the profile of some king. On the reverse, a coat of arms. The detail was fine. Good work by the artist. He put the coin back and lay down. Tomorrow was his first day of work. A real day of work. Not survival, not running away. Work. He would do what he did best. Finding holes in the system. Only before, he'd written reports that developers ignored. But now he'd sell those reports to those who needed them. He smiled, his eyes closed. In the morning, he woke to a knock on the door. The tavern owner stood in the doorway. She didn't look him in the eye, but she was holding a plate. Porridge. Hot. With butter. She set the plate on the floor and left without saying a word. Alex looked at the plate, then at the door, then back at the plate. He sat down on the floor and began to eat. The porridge was salty and thick and incredibly delicious. He ate and thought about how he'd paid her a gold coin yesterday. And she'd brought him breakfast. Not because he'd paid, because he'd paid and hadn't demanded anything in return. For NPCs used to players taking everything and giving nothing, this was strange. Strangeness breeds curiosity. Curiosity breeds porridge with butter. He finished eating and went downstairs. Renard was already waiting. There were 5 of them with him, a full party. A warrior, a mage, an archer, a priest, and a ranger. All between levels 50 and 70, all stuck players. Alex looked at them. They looked at him. The Pathfinder asked Renard if this was a joke. Renard said it wasn't a joke, and that this goblin had led him through the Tomb of Whispers in 2 hours without a single casualty. The Pathfinder looked at Alex again. Alex said they were going to the Caves of White Mist, that the traps there react to the player tag and that he would go first, that he was a mob and had a different tag, that he would trigger the traps himself and either they wouldn't work on him or he would die and return in 12 seconds. The group was silent. The mage asked if he was serious about coming back. Alex nodded. He dies and comes back. That's his thing, his gimmick, his glitch, if you will. They left the village at dawn. The journey to the White Mist Caves took 4 hours. Alex rode on Renard's shoulder. Walking on foot was too slow. Goblin legs versus the legs of a 67th level paladin. The difference was like that between a bicycle and a train. Renard carried him in silence. The others glanced sideways. The tracker muttered something about a circus. The caves turned out to be exactly as Alex had imagined them. An entrance in the rock. A dark corridor. Dampness. Dripping water. He jumped off Renard's shoulder and walked ahead. The first trap was 10 steps in. A slab in the floor. Pressure activates spikes from the walls. Alex stepped on it. Nothing. The spikes didn't come out. The tag didn't match. He turned around and gave a thumbs up. The group followed, stepping exactly on the same slabs he had stepped on. The second trap. A taut string at human knee level. At goblin neck level. He saw it, pointed it out. They stepped over it. Third trap. Magical. A rune on the ceiling. It lit up when Alex passed beneath it. He managed to jump out of the way. A beam scorched the floor where he had been standing. The magical traps reacted to movement, not to the tag. He made a mental note of that. The fourth trap. He didn't see it. The floor gave way. He fell into a pit of stakes. 3 stakes pierced his body. The world went white. 12 seconds. He appeared at the top, on the edge of the pit. The group stared at him wide-eyed. He said the pit was 4 meters deep, and that they needed a rope or levitation, and that the stakes were poisoned, judging by their green color, and that he was currently in an echo delay, so they should wait 20 minutes. They waited. Then they moved on. They reached the boss in 2 hours. A typical party of this level would have taken a day. Alex died 3 more times along the way. He came back every time. He provided information every time. The depth of the pit, the type of poison, the delay between the trap's activation and the strike, the cooldown time. He died and took notes. The cave boss was a level 60 stone golem. Big, slow, powerful. Alex peeked at him from around the corner. Standard model, massive body, small head, cobblestone arms. He knew this type. The attack animation was long. Wind up 1.2 seconds. Attack 0.3 seconds. Recovery 0.8 seconds. Attack window after the strike 0.8 seconds. But that was just his guess. He needed to check. He told the group to wait. He stepped out to face the golem. The golem turned, raised its arm. Swing. Alex counted. 1. Strike. The world went white. 12 seconds. He reappeared next to the group, and he said the swing took 1.4 seconds, not 1.2 as he'd thought. That's good, more time to position themselves. He also said the hitbox of the strike covered about 120 degrees in front of the golem, so they need to stand behind it, and that after the strike the golem freezes for a second, a full second. Hit it during that window. Renard nodded. The group went in. The fight lasted 4 minutes. The golem didn't land a single hit. The loot was generous. Armor, weapons, recipes, gold. Renard placed his share in front of Alex. 50 gold pieces. And he added another 20 of his own. He said the goblin deserved it. Alex took the money. 130 gold pieces for 4 days of life in the new world. On the way back, the tracker walked beside Renard and quietly remarked that if this goblin was real, he was worth more than their entire group. Renard didn't argue. Alex sat on his shoulder and pretended to be asleep, but he heard every word, and he smiled. A week had passed. Alex counted the days by the sunrises. 7 sunrises, 4 raids, 12 deaths, 410 gold pieces. His name began to spread around the area. Not his real name, his nickname. Gnaw. The goblin who gnaws at roots, the goblin who never dies, the goblin who knows the dungeons better than those who built them. Rumors preceded him, distorted, exaggerated. One claimed to have seen a goblin walk through a wall. Another swore the goblin killed a level 80 boss with a glance. A third insisted the goblin was actually a god in disguise. Alex listened to these rumors and shook his head. He didn't walk through a wall. He found a texture without collision. He didn't kill a boss with a glance. He died in front of the boss 6 times before he found the pattern. He isn't a god. He's a tester. But people like stories about gods more than stories about testers. On the 8th day, a girl came to him. He was sitting at his table in the tavern. Yes, now he had his own table. The landlady had put a sign on it. Taken. A small victory for a goblin. The girl entered quietly. Long, light brown hair. Hands smudged with dirt, a simple dress, an apron stained with herbs. Over her shoulder hung a canvas bag from which bundles of dried plants stuck out. NPC, level 12, class, herbalist, rare, common. She walked up to the counter and asked the landlady where the goblin everyone was talking about was sitting. The innkeeper nodded in his direction. The girl turned. She looked at him. And she wasn't afraid. Alex noticed it right away. Everyone else was afraid, or winced, or looked away. She just looked, the way you look at a person. She walked over and sat down across from him. She said her name was Hannah Reed, that she was an herbalist from the village of Silverbrook, a 2-hour walk to the east, that she'd heard about the goblin who understood the mechanics of the world, and that she needed help. Alex asked what kind. Hannah pulled a small book out of her bag, a recipe book, worn, the pages yellowed. She opened it to a bookmarked page and turned it toward him. A recipe for a regeneration potion. Ingredients: moongrass, silverweed root, dew gathered at dawn. She said she was following the recipe exactly to the letter, every step, every ingredient. But the potion doesn't work. It turns out to be a murky liquid with no effect. She tried 30 times, same result every time. Alex picked up the book. He looked at the recipe, then he looked at Hannah, then back at the recipe. The recipe was a standard in-game recipe. 3 ingredients, fixed proportions, fixed result. In a normal game, it would work automatically. He placed the ingredients, pressed the button, got the item. But Eldrasil had ceased to be a normal game. It had become reality. And in reality, the proportions depend on the quality of the ingredients, and on the order of mixing, and on the temperature, and on a dozen other factors that the game engine ignored. He asked Hannah where she gathered moongrass. She said in the clearing by the stream. He asked at what time. She said during the day. He nodded. Moongrass. The name speaks for itself. In the game code, gathering ingredients didn't depend on the time of day. But if the world had become real, then a herb labeled moon in its name most likely had a hidden modifier tied to the lunar cycle or nighttime. He told her to gather moongrass at night. Hannah looked at him. Then she said that it was dangerous in the forest at night. Alex said he would go with her. She looked at him again, for a long time. Then she nodded. They went that very night. The forest around Quiet Hills was dark and noisy. Owls, cicadas, rustling in the bushes. Alex walked ahead. Hannah followed behind him. She was a head taller than him. Almost everyone was a head taller than him. He was 130 centimeters tall. She was about 170. He walked, lighting the way with a candle stub he'd stolen from the tavern. The clearing by the stream looked different at night. The moon grass glowed, dimly, with a bluish light. It didn't glow during the day. Alex crouched down next to a bush and looked. Glowing plants in games usually had additional properties at night. A bonus to effectiveness, increased quality. Sometimes a completely different item. He asked Hannah to gather the grass. She gathered it. Her hands were deft and careful. She treated the plants as if they were living creatures, gently, carefully. They returned to the tavern. Hannah laid out the ingredients. Moongrass gathered at night, silverweed root, dew. She began to brew the potion. Alex sat nearby and watched. Hannah worked with concentration. She ground the herb in a mortar, added the dew drop by drop, heated it over a small burner, stirred with a wooden stick. The liquid in the flask began to change color. Murky, greenish, then slightly clearer. Then it began to glow, with the same bluish light as the herb. Hannah froze. She looked at the flask. Alex could see her hands trembling. The potion was working. She held the flask up to the light, a clear blue liquid, a regeneration potion. It worked. It was real. Hannah set the flask down and looked at Alex. Her eyes were shining. She said she'd tried 30 times. 30. And every time it didn't work. She thought there was something wrong with her, that she was broken, that her recipes didn't work because she was an NPC, and NPCs couldn't create anything real. Alex looked at her and didn't know what to say. He wasn't good with words of comfort, never had been. He was good at bug reports. He said it wasn't her fault. It was the fact that the world had changed, but the recipes were still the same. The recipes were written for a game system that ignored variables. The world had become real, and the variables had started to work. Time of day, quality of ingredients, order of steps. She wasn't broken. The recipe was broken. She had fixed it. Hannah smiled, a small, quiet smile. Then she took a second flask out of her bag, an empty one, and she began to brew another potion, a different recipe, an antidote. Alex sat beside her and offered advice. Try adding the root later, heat it more, stir in the other direction. They worked until dawn. Hannah had prepared 4 potions, all effective. She sat in front of them and looked. 4 flasks, 4 colors, blue, green, yellow, red. She said she wanted to ask him something. Alex nodded. She asked if he was aware of himself. He didn't understand. She explained, 3 years ago, the NPCs began to wake up, to realize that they were created, that their lives were scripted, that their feelings might be programmed. She was one of the first to wake up, and ever since, she hasn't been able to stop thinking about one thing. Are her feelings real? When she's happy that the potion turned out right, is it real joy, or a line of code that triggers the emotion of joy upon a successful craft? When she's scared at night in the forest, is it real fear, or a reaction programmed for her class? She doesn't know. And this uncertainty eats away at her from the inside every day. Alex was silent. He was thinking. Then he looked at the 4 flasks in front of her. He told her to look at the potions. He said that according to the recipe, the regeneration potion restores 50 health points health in 30 seconds. It's written in the book. It's in her stats. But when she healed his hand,
which he'd cut on a branch in the forest. The potion restored 60 points in 25 seconds. He noticed. He always notices the numbers.
Her potion works better than it should according to the stats, by 20%. If she were just code, her potions would give exactly 50 in 30 seconds. Not a single more, not a second less. But she does more than what's written in it, and that means she's more than what's written. Hannah looked at him for a long time. Then she picked up the flask of blue potion and took a sip. Not for healing, just because. She said it was sweet. Alex said there was no sugar in the recipe. Hannah smiled, wider than before. She said she liked that answer, not because it was right, but because it was concrete. Not philosophy, not consolation, numbers. She stood up and gathered her things, said she'd be back, that she had 40 more recipes that didn't work. Alex said he'd charge 10 gold pieces per recipe. Hannah laughed, said she didn't have that much, but she could pay with potions. Alex thought about it. He needed potions, especially if they worked 20% better than normal. He agreed. They shook hands, a green palm and a human one, for the second time that week. Hannah left at dawn. Alex watched her go from the attic window. She walked down the road. Her long hair swayed in time with her steps. A bag of potions slung over her shoulder. He thought she was the first person in this world who had looked at him and not seen a monster. She simply didn't see it. As if green skin and fangs weren't any more significant than the color of a shirt. He turned away from the window. There were 3 flasks in the room. Hannah had left him a regeneration potion, an antidote, and a night vision potion that he didn't know would work until they made it by accident, mixing up the order of the ingredients. A mistake that turned into a discovery, just like Alex himself. He sat down on the bed and opened a new file in his mind. Not a bug report, something else. A list of people who looked at him as a human being. So far, there was one name on the list. Hannah Reed, herbalist, level 12. Common, sweet potions, not broken, a month, 30 sunrises. Alex did the math. 12 raids, 31 deaths, 1,200 gold. His reputation was growing faster than he'd planned. Too fast. It worried him. There's a rule in QA, if everything's working too well, it means you're not seeing the problem. The problem arrived on the 31st morning, in the form of a girl, a redhead, loud, with cracks in her half-armor and wild eyes. She kicked the door open and stormed into the tavern. The landlady jumped up from behind the bar. 2 players at the nearby table reached for their weapons. The girl walked straight to Alex's table. She stood over him, looking down on him. A player, level 5-8, class, fire mage, rare. She was young, very young. She was 19, but her face looked 16. Maybe because it had once been the face of a 12-year-old girl who got stuck in the game and grew up here. She said she needed that very goblin. Alex said he was that goblin. She sat down, without asking permission. She slapped her palm on the table. She introduced herself. Yuna Park, former streamer, formerly popular, formerly everything. She needed to clear a dungeon. A specific dungeon. Spire of Ashwind, level 55 level. She had tried 11 times. She hadn't made it through. Alex asked why she was alone. Yuna fell silent. Then she said that no one went with her. He asked why. She didn't answer. He waited. She still didn't answer. He said the price was 50 gold for a full breakdown. She tossed a pouch onto the table. The gold clinked. Alex opened it. Exactly 50. He began to sketch. Spire of Ashwind. A tower dungeon. 5 floors. Fire-type mobs. A boss at the top. Standard ascending structure. Each floor harder than the last. He sketched and explained. First floor. Fire elementals. Weak against water and ice. She's a fire mage. Fire against fire mobs. 0 damage. That's her first problem. Yuna cut him off. Said she knew. She's not an idiot. She takes physical damage from the staff. Slow but effective. Alex nodded. So the first floor isn't a problem. Second floor, living armor, immune to magic entirely. Yuna cut him off again, said she gets past them too. It takes a long time, it hurts, but she gets past them. Alex nodded again. Third floor. Yuna didn't cut him off, she was silent. Third floor. He looked at her, the 3rd floor of the Ashwind Spire, the room of the burned. A small space filled with charred NPC mannequins, a set, a backdrop. But for a fire mage who once accidentally burned a living person, this wasn't a set, it was a trigger. He didn't know the details, but he saw her turn pale, saw her fingers clench the edge of the table, saw her eyes go glassy. He'd seen it before. In people who worked 40 hours without sleep and then stared at the screen without blinking. Overload, freeze. He quietly asked what had happened on the third floor. Yuna said nothing. Alex said she was lying, and that lying was pointless because he didn't care about the reason. All that mattered to him was the result. If there was something on the third floor preventing her from fighting, then it was a bug in her combat system, and bugs needed to be fixed, not hidden. Yuna looked at him, for a long time. Then she told him. She was 12 when the servers crashed, fire mage, the only class that gave her a sense of control. The fire obeyed her, the fire was beautiful. She streamed, and viewers loved her for her dazzling spell effects. Then the world became real, and the fire became real. In her first year, she was in a party, clearing a dungeon. A friend stood beside her, another stuck player, an archer, 14 years old. Yuna cast a fire wave. Her friend stepped forward. Yuna didn't have time to cancel it. The fire engulfed her. NPCs, players. In Eldrasil after the collapse, friendly fire worked. It always worked. She didn't know. Her friend survived, barely, with burns all over her body. 6 months in bandages. They haven't spoken since. Since then, Yuna has been afraid of her own fire. She can cast spells, technically, but every time she utters a spell, her hands shake, her aim wavers, and she sees her friend's burning silhouette. That's why she fights with a staff, physically, like a warrior. A level 58 fire mage who fights with a stick. Alex listened. When she finished, he was silent for a moment. Then he said he needed just one spell from her. One. Not a fire wave, not a storm of flames, a fire pulse. The smallest one, the simplest one. A single shot at a single point. A window of accuracy of 0.4 seconds. Yuna asked why. Alex explained. The boss at the top of the spire, the Ash Guardian. His weak spot is the crystal in the center of his chest. The crystal is covered by armor that opens for 0.4 seconds after every third attack. A physical strike won't reach it. It's too far away. An arrow won't reach it. The crystal is behind a magic field. Only fire magic passes through the field. Because the field lets fire through, the boss is fire himself. His defenses are tailored against everything except his own element. A classic balancing mistake. The developer didn't think anyone would bring a fire mage to a fire boss. A single precise fire blast in the 0.4 seconds is enough to shatter the crystal and take away 80% of the boss's health. He doesn't ask her to believe in herself, doesn't ask her to overcome her fear, doesn't ask her to forgive herself. He asks her to do the job. A specific one, a measurable one. 0.4 seconds, one shot. Yuna was silent for a long time. Then she asked what would happen if she missed. Alex said that then he would die, because he'll be standing next to the boss, distracting him. If she misses, the boss will strike and Alex will die. Then he'll come back in 12 seconds and they'll try again. She can miss as much as she wants. He'll die as many times as it takes. Yuna looked at him. Then she said he was crazy. Then she said he was a frog, not a goblin. Then she said, fine. They set out the next morning. The journey to the spire took 6 hours. Yuna walked fast, long legs. Her game level granted her movement speed. Alex rode on her shoulder. She grumbled the whole way. She said she looked like an idiot, a fire mage with a goblin on her shoulder. If anyone saw her, her streaming career, which she no longer had, would be over for good. Alex said that technically her career was already over. Yuna flicked his ear. It hurt. The first 2 floors went according to plan, slowly. Yuna swung her staff. Alex gave her hints. Stand to the right. Wait for the second attack. Strike after the swing. He died twice on the 2nd floor while figuring out the attack pattern of the living armor. 3rd floor. The room of the burned. Yuna stopped at the entrance. Alex jumped off her shoulder. He looked at her. Her hands were trembling. Her face had gone pale. He didn't tell her everything would be okay. He said the charred mannequins were decorative objects tagged as background. They weren't interactive, not flammable, not alive. They were polygons with an ash texture. They have no hitboxes. They have no health. They have no pain receptors. They're furniture. Yuna looked at him. He continued. He said her friend was alive, that the burns had healed, that friendly fire was disabled in this zone because the 3rd floor wasn't a combat zone but a transition area. He'd checked. He died here on purpose that morning while she slept at the foot of the tower. He went in. He touched the mannequin. A standard training ground. He went out. Everything was safe. Yuna took a step, then a second. She walked across the room. She didn't run. She walked. Slowly. But she walked. Alex walked beside her. A little goblin beside a tall girl. Across the room of fake ash. They passed the 4th floor quickly. The 5th. The boss. The Ash Guardian. A huge figure made of molten stone. Level 60. 2 lava swords. A crystal in the center of its chest, covered in armor. Alex looked at Yuna. She was standing in the doorway. Her hands were still shaking. But there was something different in her eyes. Not fear. Focus. He told her to wait. He ran toward the boss. The Ash Guardian looked down. A level 3 goblin. Not even a threat. Just a nuisance. He swung his sword. Alex dodged. Agility 4 and short stature. The sword passed over his head. Second strike. Didn't dodge. The world went white. 12 seconds. He appeared at the door next to Yuna. Said the interval between strikes was 2.1 seconds. Ran again. Died. Came back. He said the 3rd strike was vertical and that the armor would open after it. He ran. He died. He returned. He said the window was exactly 0.4 seconds and that the crystal was 3 hours from the center. Yuna stood and watched as he died again and again. A little green idiot running toward a fiery giant to get killed. He comes back every time. Every time with new information. Every time a little paler. A little slower. The echo delay was building up. After his 4th death, he could barely stand. He said she had one chance before he passed out. If she missed, they'd come back tomorrow. Yuna raised her hand. The staff glowed. She wasn't shaking. For the first time in 7 years. Because this wasn't about her. Not about her fear. Not about her friend. It was about 0.4 seconds and a little goblin who would die for the 5th time if she missed. A specific task. A specific goal. A specific window. The Ash Guardian struck once. Twice. 3 times. Vertical. The armor opened. The crystal flashed. Yuna fired. A fiery pulse. Small, precise, bright. It entered the crystal. Silence for half a second. Then the crystal burst. The Ash Guardian screamed. His body began to crack. Pieces of scorching stone fell to the floor. He collapsed. The floor shook. Dust rose. When it settled, Yuna stood with her hand raised. A small flame was dying at her fingertips. Small, steady, harmless. Her fire. Alex sat by the door, leaning against the wall. The 5th echo delay in 2 hours. His head was splitting. The world was spinning. But he saw her standing there, how she looked at her hand, how the little flame danced on her fingers. She turned around, looked at him. Her eyes were wet. She said she'd hit it. He said he'd seen it. She came over, lifted him with one hand. He weighed 30 kilograms. For a 58th level mage, that's nothing. She carried him down the stairs, on her shoulder. Just like he'd ridden here. Only now she wasn't grumbling. She was silent. Then she said quietly that she would call him Frog. Alex said that frogs are green and that there was logic in that. Yuna laughed, softly, hoarsely, as if she hadn't laughed in a long time and had forgotten how. She gave him all the loot from the spire. He refused. She said she didn't take handouts from frogs and that this was payment for services. He took it, 200 gold pieces, and a staff with a fiery aura that she didn't need because she had her own. They returned to Quiet Hills by nightfall. Yuna said she'd be back in 3 days, that she knew of 2 more dungeons she couldn't get through. Alex said the price was standard. Yuna said she had a new price. She would be his bodyguard, for free, because frogs need protection from herons. Alex thought about it. A level 58 fire mage is a free bodyguard. Objectively, that was a better deal than 50 gold. He agreed. Yuna left. Alex went up to the attic and lay down. His body ached from the echo delays. His head was buzzing. But a second name had appeared on the list of people who saw him as a human. Yuna Park, fire mage, level 58, rare. She calls him a frog. She hits the window in 0.4 seconds. The idea came to him at night. Alex was lying in the attic doing the math. 1,400 gold. A steady stream of customers. Renard brought friends. Friends brought their friends. 3 or 4 groups every week. But it was all temporary. The tavern wasn't his.
The attic room was rented. He lived at the mercy of the landlady, who had grown accustomed to him but hadn't grown fond of him. He was a convenient lodger, but he didn't make noise. He paid on time. He didn't break the furniture. But if someone came tomorrow offering more gold for the attic, she'd kick the goblin out without a second thought. He needed a place of his own. In the morning, he left the tavern and walked around the village. Quiet hills. 14 houses, but not all of them were inhabited. On the outskirts stood a building he'd noticed back in his first week, a former shop. Empty. The roof was intact. The walls were sturdy. The door hung on a single hinge. The window was broken. Inside, dust and rat droppings. A sign hung above the door. The letters were worn away, unreadable. He went inside. One room, large, a counter against the wall. The shelves were empty. The back door led to a second, smaller room. There was a bed, broken, a table, a chair, a stove. Perfect. He went to the village headman. The headman was a level 15 NPC, a peasant, not awakened, or perhaps awakened but hiding it well. Alex placed 200 gold pieces in front of him. He said he wanted to buy an empty shop on the outskirts. The village head looked at the gold, then at the goblin, then at the gold. 200 gold pieces was the village's annual budget, for an empty house that nobody needed. The deal took a minute. Alex walked out with a key, rusty, heavy, his first property in his new life. He spent the next 3 days fixing it up, or rather, others fixed it up while he supervised. Renard hauled in some boards and repaired the door. His priest cleaned the floor with a purification spell. The archer brought glass for the window.
Hannah came and hung bundles of dried herbs on the walls. The musty smell gave way to the scent of lavender and mint. Yuna came and set fire to the rat's nest in the corner. A controlled fire, small, precise. She smiled as she did it. Alex stood in the center of the empty shop and watched. The counter is clean. The shelves are empty but intact. The floor was scrubbed clean. The window was intact. The door hung on 2 hinges. He found some old paint in the storeroom, red, thick. He didn't need to make a brush. Hannah gave him a bundle of stiff grass tied with string. He went outside and wrote on the sign. The letters were crooked. Goblin fingers don't hold a brush well. But they're legible. The Shop of Strange Solutions. Yuna stood nearby and criticized him. She said the letters were crooked. Alex said he was a goblin and that he had 4 fingers and that crooked letters were authentic. Yuna said the word authentic didn't fit with a sign painted with a grass brush. Hannah said she liked it. Alex decided that Hannah's opinion mattered more. The first customer came in that same day, not counting Renard and the regulars, a new one, an NPC woman from the neighboring village, a farmer, level 8. The problem is simple. Her field isn't yielding a harvest. She plants wheat, waters it, waits. The wheat grows halfway and stops. It's been 3 seasons now. Alex listened. He asked questions. What kind of field is it? Where is it located? What's the soil like? When did the problem start? The woman answered. The field is behind the eastern hill. The soil is ordinary. The problem started 2 years ago. Alex thought for a moment. 2 years ago? What happened 2 years ago in this area? He asked Renard. Renard remembered. 2 years ago, a large guild passed through the eastern hills, a dungeon raid. Along the way, they cleared the surrounding area of mobs. Standard procedure. Mages used area of effect spells. Fire, ice, lightning. Alex nodded. Area of effect spells in games usually leave temporary effects on the terrain. Debuffs, texture changes. In a normal game, the effects disappear after a minute. But Eldersill had ceased to be a normal game. He asked the woman to take him to the field. She did. The field looked normal. The ground was dark. The sprouts were green. Everything was as it should be. But Alex crouched down and looked closely. At the field's status bar, yes, the field had a status bar. Thin, barely visible. Most people don't pay attention to it because it's a decorative element. Service information, field, type. Farming zone, status, active debuff. Residual magic damage, icy aura. Minus 40% to growth rate, indefinite. There it was. 2 years ago, a mage had struck this field with an ice spell. The spell's debuff hadn't disappeared. In the game system, it was supposed to disappear after 60 seconds, but in the real world, Those 60 seconds stretched into infinity because the debuff timer is tied to the server tick, and the server tick has been unstable since the collapse. The debuff froze. Just like a program freezes when a process can't complete. The week grows 40% slower, not just temporarily, forever. The solution was simple. The debuff needed to be reset, overwritten. Another magical effect needed to be cast on top of it. A fiery one. Fire cancels out ice. The basic mechanics of elemental interactions. He returned to Quiet Hills and asked Yu Nu. She came to the field. She looked at him. "Are you serious?" she asked. Alex said seriously. He needed a fire impulse of minimal power distributed evenly across the field. Not to burn, to warm, to remove the ice debuff. Yuna raised her hands. She closed her eyes. Fire flowed from her palms, soft, warm, like morning light. It spread across the field. The ground began to smoke. The sprouts swayed. The status bar flashed. The debuff disappeared. The ice aura removed. The farmer woman stood at the edge of the field and watched. Then she looked at her sprouts. They began to grow, right before her eyes, not quickly, but noticeably. Stretching upward, unfolding their leaves. 2 years of stagnation ended in 30 seconds. The woman paid 30 gold, all she had. Alex took 10. He told her to spend the rest on seeds because now they would sprout. The woman left. Yuna stood nearby and looked at her hands. Fire at her fingertips. Small, warm, not dangerous. She said it was the first time she'd used fire for something other than fighting. For the first time in 7 years. She warmed the earth. She grew wheat. She did something good with fire. Alex said that fire is a tool. A hammer can kill a person. A hammer can build a house. The difference isn't in the hammer. Yuna told him to shut up and stop philosophizing. But her voice was soft. The word spread. The farmer's wife told the neighbors. The neighbors told others. A week later, a line formed at the shop of Strange Solutions. A small one, 5 people, but a line. A farmer with a dried-up well. Alex checked it out. The water supply was tied to a hidden timer. The timer had gone haywire. They reset it by pressing and releasing the pump lever 99 times in a row. The number 99 is a typical stack overflow in integer variables. On the 100th press, the counter resets to 0 and the timer restarts. The well started working. A merchant with a missing caravan. Not entirely missing. The caravan left 3 weeks ago and never arrived. Alex looked at the route map. The caravan was traveling through an area marked on the map as a road, but which actually straddles the border between 2 farming zones. At zone borders, NPC mobs sometimes glitch. They get stuck in textures. They walk in circles. If the caravan horses glitched at the zone border, the caravan is stuck there and has been walking in circles ever since. Alex gave the coordinates. The merchant sent people. They found the caravan right there. The horses had been walking in a 10-meter circle for 3 weeks. The goods are intact. The people are alive. They just kept walking and walking and walking. A woman with a sick child. Not sick, stuck. Her son is a 6-year-old NPC. 3 days ago he fell asleep and hasn't woken up. His eyes are closed, he's breathing, but he won't get up. Alex went to her house, looked at the boy, status bar, status. Him, active, permanent. It wasn't a dream, it was a stuck status effect. Someone or something had cast a sleep debuff on the boy, and the debuff wouldn't go away. Like with the field, like with the well, a pattern. After the collapse, system effects freeze. Timers go haywire, debuffs become permanent. The world is literally glitching and people are suffering because of it. Alex asked Hannah. A wake-up potion, a simple recipe. She made it in an hour, adjusted for nighttime herb gathering and an increased dosage. She poured it into the boy's mouth. He opened his eyes a minute later. His mother was crying. Hannah was crying. Yuna stood in the doorway and didn't cry, but turned away so no one could see her face. Alex stood there thinking. A pattern. Stuck debuffs. Timers that had gone haywire. Processes that had stalled. The world after the collapse is full of such minor glitches. Each one insignificant on its own. The field isn't growing. The well isn't working. The child is sleeping. But together they paint a picture of systemic failure. And no one is fixing it. The players don't notice. To them it's just background noise. A backdrop. They go into dungeons and kill bosses and collect loot. And the farmer has been watching the wheat fail to grow for 3 years. And the mother hasn't slept for 3 days, sitting beside her son who won't wake up. Alex returned to the shop. He sat down behind the counter. He placed a sheet of paper and a pen in front of him. He began to write. A list. All the frozen bugs he'd found over the past month. Debuffs. Timers. Triggers. Recasts. Zone boundaries. Each with a description, each with a solution, each with a priority. He wrote for 2 hours. He ended up with 47 items. 47 glitches in a small corner of the world around a single village. If extrapolated to all of Eldrasil, the count runs into the thousands. Tens of thousands of minor bugs that living creatures suffer from. And one goblin with a tester's eye who sees them all. He looked at the list, then at the sign above the door. The Shop of Strange Solutions. It's more than a shop. It's a bug tracker for the whole world. And he's the only one who keeps it. In the evening, Hannah brought dinner. Soup. Hot. With bread. She came every evening. Not because Alex asked her to. Not because he paid her. She just came. Sat down across from him. Set her plate down. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they were silent. Today they were silent. Alex ate his soup and looked at the list on the wall. 47 bugs. 47 little tragedies. Hannah said she had an acquaintance, a blacksmith, in a mountain village to the north, a good blacksmith, the best she knew. But she wasn't working, not for 5 years. She'd gone into the mountains and wouldn't let anyone near her. Alex asked why. Hannah said that Sonmi hates what she does, hates forging, because everything she ever forged was used to kill NPCs. Players would come, order swords, leave. They killed her kin. She forged weapons that were used to destroy her own world. When she realized this, she broke her anvil and left. Alex listened and chewed on his bread. Then he asked if she could forge a shield. Hannah asked what kind of shield. Alex said he needed a shield with a defect, an intentional one, a shield that breaks on the 3rd hit. Hannah looked at him. She asked why. Alex explained. In 2 weeks, a group would come to him with a quest for a dungeon where the boss counterattacks after a block. If the shield doesn't break, the boss strikes back through the shield. Full damage. But if the shield breaks on the 3rd hit, the boss's counterattack misses because the system checks for the presence of a shield, not its integrity. The shield is broken. The system thinks there's no block. The counterattack doesn't trigger. A window for a strike opens. He needs a shield that breaks perfectly. Exactly. On the 3rd hit. Not the 2nd. Not the 4th. Specifically the 3rd. This requires skill. Not the skill to do it well, the skill to do it poorly. On purpose. Exactly. Hannah smiled. She said Sonmi would appreciate it. Alex said he'd go see her himself. Hannah said she'd go with him because Sonmi once broke the jaw of a player who showed up uninvited. Alex looked at his jaw. Goblin-like. Small. Fragile. He decided that Hannah's company was a good idea. They would go tomorrow. He finished his soup. Hannah took the bowl. She left. Alex was left alone in the shop. It was getting dark outside. He lay down on the bed in the back room, his own bed, in his own house, with a sign above the door, with 47 bugs on the wall, with 2 names on the list of people who see him as a human being. Tomorrow would be the 3rd. He closed his eyes. And on the edge of his consciousness for a second, he saw something strange. A landscape. Mountains. But not the mountains around quiet hills. Different ones. Sharp. Dark. With a red sky. He hadn't seen them before. He'd never been to a place like that. But the image was clear. Clear. Like a memory. Someone else's memory. Then it vanished. He lay in the darkness and thought about the mountains he hadn't seen. About a stranger's memory in his head. About how his body once belonged to someone else. A goblin named Grizz, without the letter Z. Cut from the game 6 months before release. Removed. But not completely. He fell asleep, thinking that one day he would have to sort this out. But not today. Today he had a shop and soup and a list of bugs and 2 friends. For a level 3 goblin, that was already a lot. The mountain trail was narrow. Rocks crumbled beneath their feet. Hannah walked ahead. Alex followed her, trying not to look down. Goblin legs were short and clumsy, and the trail was designed for a human stride. Every rock was a challenge. They walked for 4 hours. Hannah told him about it along the way. Sonmi Cho, 27 years old, a blacksmith, one of the best in Eldrasil. She came to her senses 5 years ago, one of the first. And the first thing she realized was that every sword she forged was used for farming, to kill NPCs,
Goblins, slimes, peasants in farming zones. She forged weapons. Players took them. They killed living creatures. They came back for more. She forged again. A conveyor belt of death in which she was a cog.
When the realization hit, she didn't leave the smithy for 3 days. On the 4th day, she took a hammer and smashed the anvil. She packed her things. She went into the mountains. 5 years. She didn't let anyone near her. 2 players tried. She broke one's jaw. She broke the other's both arms. Both were above level 40. She didn't care. Hannah said she comes to see her once a month. She brings food, herbs. Sometimes they talk. Sometimes Sonmi stays silent the whole visit. But she doesn't chase her away. Hannah is the only one she doesn't chase away. Alex asked why. Hannah said that one winter Sonmi got sick, a fever. Hannah came with herbs. She nursed her for 3 days. She didn't leave. She slept on the floor next to the bed. Ever since then, Sonmi lets her in. She doesn't talk sometimes, but she lets her in. They arrived around noon. The hut stood on a rocky ledge, small, stone, a slate roof, a shed nearby. Under the shed, the remains of a smithy, a broken anvil, an extinguished forge, rusty tools, 5 years of disuse. The door opened before they knocked. Sonmi stood in the doorway, tall, a head taller than Hannah, muscular, dark hair pulled back into a tight knot, a burn on her right cheek, old, faded. Her hands were large and strong, hands that had bent metal. She looked at Hannah, then down, at Alex. Her expression didn't change. No surprise, no disgust, no fear. Just an assessment. Like a blacksmith assessing a piece of metal. What kind of material, what quality, what it's good for. She asked Hannah what it was. Hannah said it was Grizz, the goblin she'd been telling her about, the very one. Sonmi looked at Alex again, said she'd imagined him bigger. Alex said everyone says that. Sonmi almost smiled. Almost. The corner of her mouth twitched and froze. She stepped away from the door. It was an invitation. Inside, the hut was Spartan. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, a shelf with books, a pot over the hearth. Clean, simple, nothing superfluous. A hammer hung on the wall. One, not rusty, polished. She hadn't thrown it away, hadn't broken it, had taken it with her, kept it, but didn't use it. Alex noticed it right away. A person who hates their craft doesn't hang a tool on the wall. They hide it, or throw it away. She hung the hammer in plain sight. So she doesn't hate it, she misses it. But she can't go back because going back means forging again what kills. They sat down at the table. Hannah brewed tea from her herbs. Alex waited. He didn't rush. He'd learned that on the job. When you go to a developer with a bug, don't start with the bug. Start with a conversation. Let the person get used to you, then show them the problem. Sonmi spoke first. She asked if it was true that he didn't die. Alex said he did. Very much so. It hurts. Every time. He just comes back afterward. She asked what it was like. He thought for a moment. Then he said it was like a bug in a working build. You know the program is supposed to close. It closes, but then it opens again. With the same data. You click the X. It closes, opens, closes, opens, and you start to suspect that somewhere there's a call in the code that restarts the process every time it finishes. Sonmi looked at him. Then she said he was talking strangely. Alex said he lived strangely. Then he got down to business. He pulled a piece of coal from his belt and began drawing on the table. A shield, round, medium size, 3 layers, outer, middle, inner, he explained. He needs a shield that breaks on the 3rd blow, not before, not after. First blow, the outer layer cracks. Second blow, the middle layer breaks. Third blow, the shield falls apart completely, but not by accident, controlled. Every crack in a predetermined spot, every fracture along a pre-weakened line. It's not a bad shield. It's an engineering project, a shield that breaks perfectly. Sonmi listened. Her fingers lay on the table. They didn't move, but Alex saw her tendons tense. The hands of a blacksmith who hadn't held a hammer in 5 years. She asked why. He explained about the boss that counterattacks through the block, about the system that checks for the presence of a shield, not its integrity, about the window that opens when the shield breaks, about the people who would be able to clear a dungeon that hadn't been cleared in 2 years because no one had thought to break the shield. Sonmi was silent. Then she stood up. She walked over to the wall. She took off her hammer, held it in her hands. The weight felt familiar. The balance was familiar. 5 years. She turned to Alex. She said that in 5 years, not a single person had asked her to make something new. Players came and asked for swords, shields, armor, standard, by the book. They didn't want craftsmanship. They wanted stats. +10 to attack, +15 to defense. Numbers. No one cared how the blade was made, what its curve was like, how the hilt felt in the hand.
They wanted a higher number. And she gave them a higher number. Every day. For years. And he came and asked her to forge a bad shield. A shield that breaks. On purpose. Precisely. By design. It was the most interesting thing she'd ever been offered in her entire life. She laughed. Softly. Low. Like stones rolling along the bottom of a stream. She hadn't laughed in 5 years. She said she would do it. But not here. The horn is dead. The anvil is broken. She needs a forge. Alex said there's a forge in Quiet Hills. Empty. The blacksmith left 2 years ago. No one has taken his place. He can work something out. Sun Mi thought about it. Then she nodded. The three of them walked down the mountain. Hannah led the way. Sun Mi followed her. Alex brought up the rear. Sun Mi carried the hammer on her shoulder, heavy, shiny. She carried it with ease. In Quiet Hills, Alex made a deal with the village elder. Another 50 gold pieces to rent the empty smithy. The elder wasn't surprised anymore.
A goblin with gold had become a common sight. Sun Mi entered the smithy. She looked around, ran her hand over the anvil. Intact, workable, good steel. She checked the forge, caked with soot but functional. Tools on the walls, pliers, tongs, a quenching bath. She stood in the middle of the smithy, and Alex saw her shoulders drop. Not from the weight, from relief. Like a person who had held their breath for a very long time and finally exhaled. She lit the fire in the forge, by herself, without help. The flames rose, the heat hit his face. Alex stood by the door and watched. Hannah was nearby. Sun Mi took a piece of steel, put it in the fire, took it out, red, glowing. She raised the hammer and struck. The sound filled the forge, clear, ringing, metal on metal. She struck again, and again, and again. A rhythm, precise, fast. The hammer rose and fell. Sparks flew. The steel bent under the blows. She was forging, for the first time in 5 years, and she wasn't forging a sword, not a weapon for killing, a shield meant to break. The strangest job of her life. She worked for 3 hours. Alex sat nearby and gave specifications. Outer layer thickness, 4 millimeters. The middle layer, 3. The inner layer, 2. Weakening lines at a 35-degree angle from the center. The depth of the notch, 0.5 millimeters. Enough to control the fracture, not enough to be visible to the eye. Sun Mi listened and struck. Her hands knew what to do. 5 years of inactivity had erased nothing. A blacksmith's muscle memory, deeper than any code. By evening, the shield was ready. Round, steel, with a dull sheen. Beautiful. Completely ordinary in appearance. Sturdy, reliable. Only Alex and Sun Mi knew that 3 fracture lines were hidden within its structure. Precise. Calibrated. Mathematically calculated. 3 strikes, 3 fractures, an open window. Sun Mi held the shield in her hands. She looked at it. Then she looked at Alex. She said she didn't care that he was a goblin. That he was the only one who had asked her to make something new. Then she leaned down and kissed him on the forehead. Quickly, firmly, like stamping a document. Alex stood there, not knowing where to put his hands. Hannah stood by the door, smiling quietly. Sun Mi straightened up. She said she was staying. Not in the mountains. Here, in this smithy. She would forge. But only what she herself decides. No assassination contracts. No swords for the pharma. Shields with defects. Horseshoes with secrets. Tools that didn't exist before. New. Different. Alex reached out his hand. Sun Mi shook it. A green palm in the blacksmith's large, calloused hand. The third name on the Y. Sun Mi Che. Blacksmith. Level 24. Common.
kisses the forehead without warning, forges perfect flaws. Rumors multiplied. Alex tracked them like bugs, traced the source, assessed the spread. Every rumor had versions. Version 1. In Quiet Hills lives a goblin who fixes the impossible. This version was safe.
It brought in customers. Version 2. A goblin lives in Quiet Hills who cannot be killed. This version was dangerous. It brought hunters. The first hunter arrived in the 6th week. A loner, a player, a level 44 assassin, a class specialized in PvP. He walked into the shop in the afternoon. Alex was sitting behind the counter, compiling a list of debuffs for a farmer from the neighboring village. The assassin stood in front of him. He said he'd heard about the immortal goblin, that he wanted to check it out. Alex looked at him. Level 44. 2 daggers on his back, light armor, a hood. A typical build for a quick kill. Alex said he wasn't immortal, that he dies, regularly, painfully, and that he didn't recommend checking because it was a waste of time for both of them. The assassin drew a dagger. Alex sighed. The dagger pierced his chest. The world went white. 12 seconds. He appeared in the shop, in the same spot. The assassin stood there with a bloodied dagger, watching.
Alex sat down at the counter and continued writing the list. His hands were shaking from the echo delay. The letters came out crooked, but he wrote. The killer struck again. White. 12 seconds. Return. Alex sat down, continued writing. A third time. White. 12 seconds. Return. The echo delay tripled. His head was buzzing. His fingers could barely move, but he sat down and picked up the quill. The assassin stood and watched the goblin who died 3 times in a row and returned to his list each time, as if death were an interruption rather than an event, like a computer rebooting in the middle of work. Annoying, but not stopping. The assassin sheathed his dagger. He stood there for a moment. Then he asked how much a consultation on the Bloody Thorn dungeon would cost. Alex said 50 gold pieces. The assassin placed the money on the counter and sat down. They talked for an hour. The assassin left with a complete map of the dungeon and 3 exploits.
Alex lay on the floor behind the counter and waited for the echo delay to pass. 3 deaths in a row, an hour unconscious. He lay there for an hour and a half because the 3rd death had been particularly painful. A dagger between his ribs. He felt every millimeter. When he came to, Yuna was standing over him, angry. Her red hair was sticking out in all directions. She asked who it was. Alex described him. Yuna said she'd find him and burn him. Alex said not to. That the killer had paid 50 gold pieces and that, from a business standpoint, it had been a productive visit. Yuna said he was an idiot. Alex didn't argue. But the incident made him think. Now a loner had come to him, curious, not angry. He killed 3 times and calmed down. But what would happen when those came who didn't need a curious test but an endless source of experience? A goblin that doesn't die. One that can be killed over and over again. Endless farming. Endless experience. Endless money. It's a matter of time. Not if, but when. He began to prepare. First, information. He asked Renard to find out everything he could about the major guilds, especially the Black Log Guild. Renard returned 3 days later with a report. The Black Log Guild, leader, Garrett Voss, 34 years old, former trader from the real world, level 89, Dark Knight class, epic rarity, 400 players under his command. They control 6 farming zones, 3 trade routes, 2 cities. Their business model is simple, farming NPCs for experience and resources, selling resources to other guilds, territorial control, monopoly. Voss ran the guild like a corporation, KPIs, quotas, weekly reports. Every player in the guild had a farming plan, so many experience points per week, so many resources. Didn't meet the quota? Fine. Exceeded the quota? Bonus. Efficient, cold, inhuman. But it worked. The Black Log Guild was the strongest on the continent. Alex listened and took notes. Corporate structure, hierarchy, quotas. This means that Voss thinks in terms of efficiency. If he finds out about the immortal goblin, he won't send a lone fighter. He'll calculate the ROI. How much experience does killing a level 3 goblin yield? Multiply by the number of kills per hour. Multiply by 24. Result, an endless stream of experience. Minimal costs, maximum return. He'll send a squad. with a duty roster, in 3 shifts, and they'll kill Alex on schedule, like milking a cow. Alex sat in the shop and looked at the map of the surrounding area he'd drawn on the wall. Quiet hills, a small village. No walls, no army, no defenses. 23 NPCs, a herbalist, a blacksmith, a fire mage, a paladin who stops by once a week. That's not enough, critically insufficient. He needs more allies, more resources, more time. Second, preparing the territory. He began mapping every meter of the valley around Quiet Hills. Every hill, every ravine, every tree, every rock. He was looking for landscape bugs, collision-free textures, decorative objects without physics, zone boundaries, triggers, anything he could use. He was dying, on purpose. Jumping off cliffs to check the height, running into walls to test for collisions. He stepped on every suspicious rock, fell into every suspicious pit. In a week, he died 28 times. Echo delays piled up. Twice he lost consciousness for several hours. Hannah treated him with potions. They helped. Better than the stats suggested. But even with her potions, every 6th time in a day meant a day without consciousness. He learned to plan his deaths, no more than 5 a day, spread them out evenly. 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening. Rest in between, potions, food, sleep. It was work, hard, painful, methodical. Like testing, only instead of a program he was testing the world. Instead of reports he drew a map. Instead of bugs he recorded possibilities. By the end of the 2nd week he had a detailed map of the valley with 34 marked anomalies. A bridge over the stream, ornamental, holds up to 10 people, collapses under the weight of the 11th. The slope of the eastern hill, the grass texture hides a cliff. Visually a flat surface, in reality a 3-meter drop. A group of rocks on the southern path. 3 out of 5 rocks lack physics. You can walk through them. Behind them is a cavity in the rock, large enough to hide 10 people. The northern forest, the border between 2 farming zones, runs through a clearing. Mobs glitch at the border. NPC wolves patrolling the forest get stuck on the line and howl incessantly. Can be used as an alarm. If someone crosses the border, the wolves will fall silent because the presence trigger will reset their patrol route. Silence instead of howling means someone is coming. 34 anomalies. 34 potential defensive tools. This is useless for an army. For a single goblin with a map and a plan, this is everything. Third, allies. He started talking to the village NPCs, not with requests, not with orders, just talking. The tavern owner. Her name was Martha, 55 years old by her own reckoning. She had awakened 2 years ago. The first thing she realized was that for 30 years straight she had said the same phrase to everyone who walked in. "Welcome to the Quiet Hills Tavern. How may I help you?" 30 years, one phrase, thousands of times. When she realized this, she couldn't speak at all. She sat behind the bar and was silent. Then she began to speak other words, slowly, hesitantly, like a child learning. Alex listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions. He just listened. Martha spoke, and he saw how with every sentence she was coming into her own. Like a person who is finally being heard. Guard Olaf, 40 years old, awoke a year ago. Realized he stands at the gate 24 hours a day without rest. Because that is the rule. The guard stands at the gate, period. No breaks, no sleep, no food. He stands because that is his function. When he realized this, he tried to walk away from the gate. He couldn't. His legs wouldn't obey him. The script kept him in place. He stood there and cried. He stood there and cried for 3 months. Until one night the script malfunctioned for 15 minutes. He walked away from the gate. For the first time in his life, he made it to the well. He looked at the stars. Then the script restarted and his legs carried him back. Ever since, every night he waits for a glitch. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Alex looked at him. Then he looked at his status bar, found it. Position lock, patrol script, gate coordinates, 2-meter radius, hard lock on. He told Olaf to wait, went to the shop, thought for 2 hours. Lock on script, how to break it. In games, positional scripts are tied to an object. The object is the gate. If the gate is moved, the lock-on point will move with it. If the gate is destroyed, the anchor will be lost. The script will try to return the NPC to coordinates that no longer exist. Error, crash, the script will freeze. And then release. He returned to Olaf, said the gate needed to be destroyed. Olaf looked at him, then at the gate, then back at him. Alex explained. Olaf listened. Then he took his sword. With 2 swings, he knocked down the gate. The wooden planks crumbled to dust. Olaf stood there. Then he took a step, then a second, a third. He walked. His legs obeyed. The script lost its anchor. The looping process found an error and stopped. Olaf walked through the entire village. To the well, to the square, to the tavern. Back. He walked through the village for 2 hours. Just walked, from one end to the other. Then he returned to Alex, stood before him, and said that if the goblin ever needed a guard, he knew where to look. The 4th name. Olaf. Guard. Level 8. Common. Free. Eva Moore came at night, without warning, without knocking. Alex woke up to find someone standing by his bed. He jerked awake and fell to the floor. A woman in a hooded cloak was staring at him from the darkness. Blonde hair, glasses, a pale face, red eyes. Not from anger, from tears. Player. Level 71. Class. Necromancer. A rarity. Epic. She stood there in silence. Alex lay on the floor and was silent too. Then he stood up, lit a candle, looked at her. She was thin, too thin. Dark circles under her eyes. Her cloak was dirty, but the magical aura around her was powerful, thick, violet. Level 71 Necromancer. This is serious. It's one of the strongest classes in the game. Control of the undead, curses, death magic. Very few people reach level 70 in this class because leveling up requires killing. A lot. Constantly. She spoke. Her voice was quiet, steady, mechanical. Like someone who had rehearsed a speech 100 times and was now delivering it on autopilot. She said her name was Eva Moore, that she was 25 years old, that before the collapse she worked as a programmer. She made indie games. Small ones. Pixel art, about lonely people in empty rooms. That when the servers crashed, she was 18. That for the first 3 years, she treated NPCs like code. Because they were code. Programs, scripts, functions. She killed them. For experience, for resources, to level up. Goblins, slimes, peasants. Hundreds, thousands. She didn't count. She didn't care. They were lines of code, not people. Then the NPCs started waking up, and she saw. She saw how the goblin she had killed looked at her before dying. With understanding, with awareness. He knew he was dying. He was afraid. He felt pain. And she saw it. And realized what each of the thousands she had killed before had felt. She fell silent. Alex waited. She continued. She said she had come to ask for forgiveness. For the goblins. For all of them. For each one. She had heard about Grizz. About the goblin who doesn't die, and she thought that if there was a goblin who remembered every death, then maybe he would understand what it meant to kill those who feel. Alex sat on the bed and looked at her. She stood there and waited, waiting for forgiveness, or punishment, or something. He didn't forgive her, not right away. Instead, he stood up. He walked over to the wall where the list of bugs hung. 47 items. No, there were already 63. He added new ones every day. He turned to her. He said that forgiveness isn't words. Forgiveness is hours. Specific hours of specific work. If she wants to atone, then let her work. She's a programmer. She sees the world as code, just like him. He needs someone to help find glitches, to calculate patterns, analyze the system. Not for money, not for experience, for people suffering from frozen bugs, for the boy who's been sleeping for 3 days, for the farmer whose wheat won't grow, for the guard who can't leave the gate. Iva looked at the list. 63 bugs. 63 little tragedies. She took off her hood. She pulled a notebook from under her cloak. Worn, covered in small handwriting. She kept records too. Not bug reports. A list of the dead. Names, coordinates, dates. Every NPC she remembered. She didn't remember them all, but she wrote down the ones she did. 847 names. 847 lines. Alex looked at the notebook, then at her, then at the notebook. 847. He closed his eyes, opened them, said that was a lot. Ava said she knew. He said there was a lot of work too. She nodded. They started working that very night. Ava thought differently than he did. Alex saw the world as a tester. Input data, expected result, actual result, discrepancy, bug. Ava saw the world as a programmer. Data structures, algorithms, dependencies, threads. Together they were like two halves of a single team. He found the bug. She explained why it existed. He described the symptom. She calculated the cause. By dawn, they had gone through the entire list. 63 bugs. For 40 of them, Iva found the root cause, a system issue, server tick timers. After the crash, the server tick became unstable. Sometimes it works normally, sometimes it slows down, sometimes it stopped. When the tick stopped, all time-based effects froze. Debuffs, timers, scripts. They froze in the state they were in at the moment of the stop. Then the tick resumed, but the frozen effects didn't restart. They remained frozen, forever. Alex looked at her explanation and thought, the server tick. It's the heartbeat of the world. If the heart beats irregularly, the organs don't function properly. The field doesn't grow. The child doesn't wake up. The guard can't leave. All because of a single, unstable tick. Iva said there was something else. She saw anomalies in the experience system. When a player kills an NPC, experience is awarded. But after the collapse, the awards became uneven. Sometimes NPCs give more experience than they should for their level, sometimes less. The variation is random, as if the experience calculation function is receiving corrupted input data. Alex asked what data was corrupted. Iva said she didn't know, but she suspected that the system used NPC parameters to calculate experience, level, class, rarity, and one more parameter, a hidden one. She couldn't read it, but she could see that it affected the result, like a variable in an equation that isn't shown, but without which the answer doesn't add up. Alex thought for a moment. A hidden parameter, an NPC that affects experience gain. It could be anything. Level of awareness, complexity of behavior, history of interactions. Something that makes some NPCs more valuable to the system than others. And if Voss finds out about this parameter, he'll start sorting NPCs by value, optimizing farming, killing those who give more experience. And who gives more experience? The awakened, the self-aware, the living. It was a terrifying thought. Alex jotted it down and set it aside for later. Ava stayed, not at the shop, in an empty house on the other side of the village. She didn't want to be around people. Not yet, anyway. She came to see Alex every morning. They worked together until lunchtime, then she would leave. Wandered around the neighborhood, tested her theories, returned with data. Yuna didn't trust her, looked at her askance, called her a ghost. Once she told Alex straight out, she's a necromancer, level 71. She's killed hundreds of goblins. How could he trust her? Alex replied that he didn't trust her. He was giving her a job. Trust would come later. Or maybe not. But she needed the job now. Yuna snorted, but she didn't argue. Hannah took a different approach. She brought Ava soup on the very first evening. Ava wasn't expecting it. She was sitting in an empty house, without a fire, no food. Hannah walked in, set down a bowl, said the soup was hot and to eat it before it got cold. Left. Ava stared at the bowl, at the door, at the bowl. Then she ate and cried. Quietly. Like Alex on the first night. Tears on a different face, but the same filth. The same silence. The same loneliness that shatters at a single bowl of soup. The fifth name, Ava Moore. Necromancer. Level 71. Epic. 847 names in the notebook. Redemption is measured in hours. They came in the third month. Not a reconnaissance mission. Not a lone wolf. A squad. 20 men. All in black cloaks with the Black Log logo on their backs. A silver axe on a red background. The squad commander. A level 72 warrior. Name, Derek Stone. Voss's right-hand man. Not the strongest, the most efficient. Alex saw them from the roof of the shop. He climbed up there every morning. A habit, a view, control. 20 black dots on the northern road. Marching in formation. Organized. He went down, entered the shop, sat down behind the counter, poured himself some tea. Hannah had brewed it that morning. Herbal, with mint. He drank and waited. The door opened. Derek walked in. 2 others followed him. The rest stayed outside, in a semicircle, blocking the exits. Standard cordon. Derek looked at the goblin behind the counter. Small, green, with a cup of tea. Level 3. He smirked. Said that Voss sends his regards. That Voss is offering a deal. Grizz moves to Blacklog's camp. Lives in a separate tent. Gets food and protection. In return, they kill him 3 times a day. On schedule. in the morning, at noon, in the evening. Neatly, without unnecessary cruelty. One blow, a quick death, a quick respawn. The experience goes to the guild treasury. Grizz gets 10% of the proceeds. Business. Clean. Simple. Alex drank his tea, took a sip, set the cup down. Said no. Derek wasn't surprised. Said it wasn't an offer, it was a notification. If Grizz didn't agree voluntarily, they'd take him by force. The village wouldn't suffer. Voss's word. Just a goblin. Alex looked at Derek, then at the two behind him, then out the window at the 17 silhouettes outside. 20 people, average level around 60, against a village of NPCs ranging from levels 8 to 15. One level 58. One blacksmith, one herbalist, one necromancer whom no one knows, and one level 3 goblin. The math didn't add up. He told Derek he needed a day to think. Derek nodded. Said he had until morning. The squad set up camp behind the village. 20 tents, 20 campfires. The village froze. The NPCs shut their shutters. The children didn't go outside. Martha closed the tavern. Olaf stood by the empty gate opening that he himself had torn down, gripping his sword. Alex gathered everyone in the shop. Yuna, Hannah, Sonmi, Ava, Renard, who happened to be in the village by a lucky coincidence. He explained the situation. 20 people. They had come for him. If he went with them, the village would be spared. If he didn't go, they would take him by force. Yuna said she would burn them all. Alex said that 20 level 60 people weren't just one dungeon. It's an army. Yuna, at level 58, wouldn't be able to handle it. Even if Ava helps. Level 71 and 58 against 20 level 60s? The numbers aren't on their side. Sonmi said she wouldn't forge anything for them. Alex said no one was asking her to. Hannah was silent. She looked at him. Renard said he could try talking to them. He knows people in Blacklog. Not friends, acquaintances. He might be able to talk them into it. Alex shook his head. Voss sent Derek. Derek isn't authorized to change the terms, just to deliver the goods. Negotiations are pointless. Ava spoke up, quietly. She said she'd seen the squad's composition. 20 people, but not all combatants. 14 warriors, 3 mages, 2 archers, 1 healer. A standard raid group, but unbalanced. Too much melee, not enough support. That means Voss sent stormtroopers, not tacticians. He doesn't expect serious resistance. He expects the goblin to run. Assault troops are good for chases and captures, bad for sieges. Alex looked at Ava, then at the map on the wall. 34 anomalies. He smiled. Yuna said he had that look again, the look he gets when he's about to do something stupid. Alex said it wasn't stupid, it was a bug exploit. He stood up, walked over to the map, started talking. An hour later the plan was ready. Not perfect, but workable. In the morning, Derek came for an answer. The shop was empty. The goblin was gone. The village stood silent. NPCs peered out from behind the shutters. No one spoke. Derek cursed. He sent out scouts. The tracks led east, into the hills. The squad followed. 20 men in heavy gear, fast, organized. They followed the tracks of small goblin feet in the mud. The tracks were clear, too clear. Alex wasn't hiding. He was leading the way. The first. Men a bridge over a stream. The squad reached it, a wide stone bridge, sturdy looking. 14 warriors stepped onto it at once. The bridge could hold 10. At the 11th, it began to creak. At the 14th, it collapsed. The stones tumbled into the stream. 7 fell. The stream was shallow. No one died. But their armor was wet. Heavy. It took 20 minutes to get them out of the water. Derek yelled at the tracker. The tracker made excuses. The bridge looked real. They moved on. The tracks led up the eastern hillside. The texture of the grass. A flat surface. 3 warriors in the vanguard fell into a hidden drop-off. 3 meters down. Bruises. Dislocations. One broke his ankle. The healer treated him. Another 15 minutes. Derek started to get nervous. The tracks led on. To a group of rocks on the southern path. The squad went around them. Carefully. Nothing flew out from behind the rocks. They passed by. They didn't notice that 3 of the 5 rocks lacked physical properties.
They didn't notice the hollow in the rock behind them. They didn't notice Yu Nu, who was sitting in that hollow and counting them. 14. No, 13. One was limping and had fallen behind. 3 mages, 2 archers,
a healer, a total of 19 active members. She quietly stepped out of the hollow and followed them, keeping her distance. The tracks led the squad into the northern forest, the border between 2 farming zones. A clearing. Wolves howled at the border. Derek stopped. He listened. The wolves were just background noise, mobs, not dangerous. He waved his hand. The squad moved across the clearing. The wolves fell silent. That was the signal. Alex stood at the far edge of the clearing, small, green, with a rusty dagger. He waved his hand. Derek saw him, gave the order. 6 warriors ran forward. Alex ran into the forest. They followed him. 6 level 60 men chasing a level 3 goblin. He knew this forest, every root, every hole, every bush. They didn't. The first warrior tripped on a root. He fell. The second jumped over but landed on wet moss. He slipped. He crashed into a tree. The third and fourth caught up. Alex stopped. He turned around. They struck. He died. 12 seconds. He appeared 20 meters to the east. The respawn point had shifted. He knew it. In this part of the forest, the respawn system is inaccurate. The coordinates fluctuate. He ran again. They were after him again. While 6 men chased the goblin through the forest, the main group stood in the clearing. 13 people. And then Iva began. A purple haze rose from behind the trees on the northern side of the clearing. Necromancy. The ground trembled. Skeletons crawled out of it. Not real ones, illusions. Iva, at level 71, could create up to 30 phantoms at once. They didn't deal damage. But they looked like real undead. 30 skeletons emerged from the ground. The squad raised their weapons. The mages began casting. The healer retreated behind the warriors. They struck at the skeletons. Their swords passed right through them. Phantoms. Emptiness. But while they were swinging their swords through the air, they weren't looking around. Son Mi emerged from the forest, silently, with a hammer. She didn't strike the people. She struck the ground. One blow, precise, at a specific point. The ground cracked. The crack spread toward the squad's feet, an underground cavern. Alex had found it a week ago. He had died there twice. The cavity wasn't deep, 2 meters, but deep enough for a squad in heavy armor to sink waist deep. The ground settled. 8 warriors were stuck, legs knee-deep in the soil. The armor was heavy. Without support, they couldn't get out quickly. The healer sank deeper, up to his chest. The mages managed to jump back, 2 of them. The third got stuck. Derek stood at the edge of the pit. He didn't fall. He was experienced. He reacted quickly. But his squad was in a pit, literally. Yuna emerged from behind the rocks. She stood on the hill, her hands raised, fire in her palms. Not an attack, a signal, bright, visible from a kilometer away. She wasn't attacking. She was showing what she was capable of. A level 58 fire mage on high ground above the trapped squad. 1 volley and their armor would be scorched. She wouldn't fire. But they don't know that. Derek stood there counting. 8 stuck. A healer chest deep in the ground. 1 mage stuck. 6 people in the woods chasing a goblin they can't catch. A fire mage on the hill. A necromancer of unknown level in the woods. And somewhere in the darkness, a blacksmith with a hammer whose blows make the earth crack. He's no fool. He's efficient, but no fool. He raised his hand, an open palm. Stand down. Alex emerged from the woods, dirty, with a split lip from his latest death. The echo delay buzzed in his head. He walked up to Derek, looked up at him. 130 centimeters against 190. He told Derek to tell Voss. Grizz isn't for sale. The quiet hills won't surrender. And if Voss wants to take him, let him come himself. Derek looked at the goblin, then at his men in the pit, then at Yunu on the hill, then back at the goblin. He said Voss would come, and that next time there wouldn't be 20 men, but 200. Alex said he knew, and that he'd be waiting. Derek turned around, pulled his men out, gathered his squad, left. 20 black cloaks on the northern road, further on, further, until they disappeared. Alex stood at the edge of the village and watched them go. Yuna approached. She stood beside him. She said he was crazy. Hannah approached from the other side. She didn't say anything, she just stood there. Sunmi stuck her hammer into the ground and sat down. Ava stood off to the side, under a tree, in her hood. But Alex noticed she was smiling. Olaf stood by the gate, with a sword. He hadn't gone anywhere, his legs were free. But he chose to stand, alone. Alex looked at them all, at the village behind him, at the sign above the shop's door, the shop of strange solutions. He said they had 3 months, maybe less. Voss would tally the losses, draw up a plan, assemble an army. He would come. And next time, the bridge and the pit wouldn't help. He needed time. And he needed help. More help than he had. Yuna asked what the plan was. Alex said there was no plan yet. There's only a list of bugs, and 3 months to turn it into a weapon. 3 months. 90 days. Alex counted every one. The first month was spent on reconnaissance. He died every day, methodically, on schedule. 5 deaths a day. Morning, 2 deaths. Lunchtime, 2 deaths. Evening, 1. In between, Hannah's potions. Rest. Notes. Hannah came every time after he returned. She sat nearby, waited for the echo delay to pass. Didn't say anything unnecessary. She was just there. Sometimes she would place her hand on his shoulder, a small green shoulder. Her hand was warm. His shoulder was cold after death. A little colder each time. He noticed it. He didn't say anything, but he noticed. In the first month, he died 147 times. The total count since his arrival had passed 200. 200 deaths, each one painful, each one real. And after each one, he returned slightly different. Not physically. Physically, he was the same goblin. 130 centimeters, 4 fingers, green skin. But something inside was changing. His thoughts flowed differently. Sometimes he caught himself thinking in a non-human way, sniffing the air before entering a room, flinching at sudden noises, baring his teeth when angry. Goblin reflexes. They grew stronger with every death, as if every time his consciousness faded and returned, his body filled the void with its own instincts. Alex Chen was fading away. Grizz was taking over. Just a little for now, as long as he was in control. But the trend frightened him. He logged it as a bug. Degradation of the original consciousness upon repeated respawns. Priority, critical. Solution, unknown. He put off this bug every day, because he didn't know how to fix it, because he was afraid it couldn't be fixed. The second month was spent on preparation. Sunmi was forging, every day. From morning till night. The clang of the hammer became the sound of the village, familiar, familiar. She wasn't forging weapons, she was forging traps. Steel plates for hidden pits, mechanisms for collapses, spikes for barricades, chains for tripwires. Every detail according to Alex's blueprints. Everyone with precise tolerances. Everyone with an intentional defect in the right place. Shields that break, chains that snap, plates that bend. Everything controlled, everything according to plan. Sunmi worked with an expression Alex couldn't read. Not joy, not anger. Something in between. Focused fury directed toward creation. She was forging protection for a world that used her craft as a weapon of murder. Every blow of the hammer was an answer. Yuna trained, every day. Alex set up targets for her, wooden posts with circles painted on them. A distance of 10 meters. A window of accuracy of 0.4 seconds. She fired. A burst of fire, small, precise. Again and again. Miss, miss, hit, miss, hit, hit. By the end of the second month, she was hitting 8 out of 10. By the end of the third, 9 out of 10. Her hands no longer shook. Not at all. She still couldn't cast major spells. Fire wave, storm of flames. They were tied to the memory of her friend. But the small, precise blast had become hers. Only hers. Not scary, not dangerous. A tool. Ava worked in the shadows, literally. She walked the entire valley, marked every zone boundary, every texture seam, every gap in the grid. She found 12 places where she could swap out the zone tag. The zone tag defines the rules for the area. Farming zone, safe zone, dungeon zone. Each zone has its own rules, its own restrictions, its own permissions. If you swap the zone tag, the rules change. A farming zone becomes a safe zone. In a safe zone, PvP is disabled. Players can't attack each other. Or NPCs. If you cover the valley with a safe zone tag, Voss's army won't be able to attack anyone.
But swapping a tag isn't a button. It's a complex process. You have to find the invisible for the zone. A physical object in the world that contains the tag data. Usually it's a rock, or a tree, or a pole. Something inconspicuous, blended into the landscape. Iva found them. 12 markers, each disguised as an ordinary object. A rock by the road, a stump in the forest, a fence post. She couldn't swap the tags herself. The swap required a specific type of necromancy, a spell that temporarily rewrites an object's properties, the curse of overwrite. She could use it, but it only lasted 30 minutes per marker, and after using it, she needed an hour to rest. 12 markers, 30 minutes for each, an hour of rest in between. That meant she couldn't switch all 12 at once, a maximum of 3 or 4 in a single run. That would be enough to cover part of the valley, not all of it. Alex thought about this limitation. 3 or 4 zones, 30 minutes each. He had to choose which zones to change and when. Timing. It all depended on timing. Hannah was working on potions, not healing ones, combat potions. A slowing potion, a blinding potion, a slipping potion that makes the ground so slippery that even heavy boots slide. She prepared each one with adjustments for the altered mechanics. Nighttime herb gathering, precise proportions, increased dosage. Her potions worked 20% better than normal. Alex knew why. Not because she's broken, because she's more than what's written in her. Renard brought reinforcements, not an army, 6 people. Veteran players who were tired of the Voss system, who had seen how NPCs were farmed and who didn't. Not heroes, just people who decided enough was enough. Their levels ranged from 40 to 60, not top tier, but fighters. Renard said that was all he could find. Alex said it was enough. Then Mira arrived, Princess Mirabelle Okafor, from the kingdom of Andrail. She didn't come to fight. She came with a document, a thin scroll bearing the royal seal.
She handed it to Alex. He unrolled it. A decree in the name of the Andrail Crown. Quiet Hills is hereby declared a protectorate of the Kingdom of Andrail. Any attack on the village is an attack on the sovereign territory of the Crown. Attackers receive a reputation penalty of -500 with the Andrail faction and all associated factions. Alex read it and couldn't believe it. Then he looked at me. Small, dark-skinned, silver hair, 16 years old. The princess of a tiny kingdom that players had turned into an attraction. But still a princess, and her royal seal still worked in the system. He asked how. Mira said that after he fixed her quest trigger 2 months ago, she gained access to royal functions. Before, she was trapped in a loop. Save the princess, reward for the hero. Rescue the princess, reward for the hero. Every day, over and over. He broke the cycle. Now she is free. And as a free princess, she has the right to issue decrees. Alex looked at the decree, then at Mira, then at the decree. A reputation penalty of -500. For Voss, that means the loss of trade contracts with 3 factions, loss of access to 2 cities, loss of quest lines for half the guild. It won't kill him, but it will slow him down. It would make him think twice. He's a traitor. He calculates. He won't take the penalty if the penalty costs more than the benefit of an immortal goblin. Maybe, if he calculates correctly. Alex took the decree. He pinned it to the wall next to the bug list. Mira stood there, looking up at him. She was one of the few people he wasn't taller than. 16 years old and almost as tall as him. She asked if she could stay. Not forever, just for a while. She has nothing to do in the palace. Her quest cycle is broken. Players no longer come to save her. The palace is empty. Her NPC parents haven't realized who they are and keep repeating the same phrases. She wants to be here, where people are real. Alex thought. A 16-year-old princess in a village preparing for war, not the best place. But she brought a decree that could save this village. And in her eyes was something he recognized. The loneliness of a being seen for the first time, truly. He nodded. Mira smiled, widely, childishly. He turned away so she wouldn't see that he was smiling too. By the end of the 3rd month, Alex was standing on the roof of the shop, looking out over the valley. 3 months of work, 312 deaths. A map of the valley with every bug and every anomaly. Sonmi's traps, Hannah's potions, Ava's tag markers, Yuna's precision, Mira's decree. Renard's 6 fighters. Olaf at the gate. Not ideal. Not enough. Against 200 people, it's not enough. He knew. But it was all he had. Down below, Hannah stepped out of the lavka. She looked up. She saw him on the roof. She raised her hand. He raised his hand in response. She went back inside. A minute later, smoke began to rise from the chimney. She was making tea. For him. Like every evening. He went downstairs, sat down at the table. Hannah set the cup down. He took a sip. Minty. Sweet. Not sweet by the recipe, sweet by Hannah's measure. She sat down across from him. She was silent. Then she said he had changed, that his eyes had become different. Before, he used to look at the world as if it were a problem. Now he sometimes looked at it like a home. Alex didn't answer. He drank his tea. He thought about how she was right. He thought about how 312 deaths was a lot. He thought about how every time he came back, he was a little less Alex and a little more Gris. He thought about other people's memories that were surfacing more and more often. Mountains, faces, voices. Gris. That first Gris. Who was here before him. Who tried to warn the world. Who was erased. Sometimes at night he heard a voice. Quiet, distant, like an echo in an empty hallway. The voice said one word. Server room. Server room. Server room. He finished his tea, set down the cup, looked at Hannah, said that if they survived what was coming, he wanted to go to one place. Far away. To the center of the world. Hannah asked why. He said that someone was asking him to come. Someone who had been here before him. Hannah looked at him for a long time, then she nodded. She said she would go with him. He didn't argue. Outside the window, the valley was quiet. The northern road was empty, for now empty. But somewhere far away, Garrett Voss looked at Derek's report and counted. They arrived at dawn. Alex saw them from the roof, a black ribbon on the northern road. 200 men. The banners of Black Log, a silver axe on a red background. At the front, riding a black horse, was Garrett Voss. Level 89. He had come alone. Alex went down to the shop. Hannah was already standing at the table. The tea was brewed, 2 cups. He sat down, took a sip. Minty, sweet. His hands didn't tremble. 312 deaths teach you one thing. Fear is useless. Fear doesn't change the situation. Preparation changes the situation. Hannah sat down across from him. She was arranging potions in the pockets of her apron, calmly, methodically, as if the army behind the hill were just another ingredient. Alex looked at her. He thought she was beautiful, a strange time for such thoughts. He finished his tea and went out. They were waiting on the street. Yuna on the smithy roof, a staff in her hands, fire at her fingertips. 9 out of 10 hits. Sun Mi at the smithy entrance, a hammer on her shoulder. Ava in the shadows at the northern edge of the village, 4 zone markers marked, waiting for the signal. Mira stood at the gate, in a princess dress, with a crown, with a royal decree in her hands. Olaf next to a sword. 6 of Renard's fighters behind the palisade. The army stopped 100 meters from the village. Voss dismounted. He walked forward alone. He could afford to. Level 89. In this valley, only another player of level 80 or higher could kill him. There were none here. He approached the gate. He saw Mira. He read the decree. Alex saw that his expression didn't change. Count. Minus 500 reputation. 3 factions. 2 cities. He did the math. And Alex knew the numbers wouldn't add up in favor of retreat. An immortal goblin is worth more. Voss said he respected Andrael's crown. But his guild was stronger than any crown. The reputation penalty was a price he was willing to pay. Mira didn't flinch. Voss walked past her like a pillar. He entered the village. They met in the square. Level 89 and level 3. 190 centimeters and 130. Voss spoke calmly. 3 deaths a day, 10% of the income. Comfort, protection. A reasonable deal. Alex asked what would happen to the village. Voss said the NPCs would work for the guild. Farmers, blacksmith, herbalist. Everyone will be useful, efficient, rational. Alex heard familiar words. KPI. Efficiency. Corporate jargon without a shred of understanding that there were living beings in front of him. Alex said no. Voss raised his hand. The army moved. Yuna fired a signal flare. Iva began. First marker. The farm zone became safe. PvP disabled. The advance party entered the zone. Swords passed right through the targets, 0 damage. Confusion. Voss understood immediately. Tag substitution. He gave the order to bypass. Ava switched the second marker, the third. 3 zones blocked. The army was trapped. But Voss was calculating. The tag is active for a limited time. He gave the order to wait. Alex knew he would do that. 30 minutes of defense, then a gap. He ran out of the village straight toward the army. He stood at the edge of the safe zone and began to speak, loudly, about a hidden parameter. Awakened NPCs grant more experience. The system evaluates the complexity of consciousness, and when Voss finds out, he'll start hunting the awakened. He spoke about Hannah, about Olaf, about the boy who hadn't woken up for 3 days. Some soldiers stared at the ground, exchanged glances. 30 minutes passed. The zone opened. The army moved forward. Hannah cast a sliding potion. 20 meters of a surface as smooth as ice. The vanguard fell. A blinding potion. A white flash. Chaos. But Voss's healers worked quickly. The army regrouped. It moved across the eastern slope. Son Mi struck a rock with her hammer. A rock fall. Voss's mages set up barriers. They passed through. Alex lured the main group across the bridge into the zone that Ava had switched to with the 4th marker. Safe zone again. Another 30 minutes. Mira read the decree to the army. Every soldier received a system warning. -500 reputation. Red. Flashing. The army wavered. Voss climbed onto a hill. He said the penalty was temporary, that the guild would compensate them. 30 minutes passed. The zone opened. Alex ran toward the army. Died. Respawned. Died. Respawned. Each time at a different spot. He counted the mages' positions, the healers' locations, the weak points in the formation. 47 times in one day. After the 20th death, he could barely stand. After the 30th, he crawled. After the 40th, he lost consciousness after every return. By evening, the village hadn't fallen. 23 soldiers quietly left the ranks. Voss set up camp. He waited for morning. Alex lay on the floor of the shop. Hannah sat beside him. He whispered that he knew all the weak spots in their formation. 47 deaths, and he had seen it all. Hannah wiped the dirt from his face. She said he was the most stubborn person she knew. He said he was a goblin. She said she knew. The night before the second day, Alex lay on the floor and couldn't get up. 47 deaths. The door opened. Lotta Bergman stood in the doorway. 29 years old, graying hair, a scar across her eyebrow. Behind her were 15 people, tired, worn out, but standing. The last bonfire guild. 15 of the original 60. She had kept them together for 7 years. She said she hadn't come to save the goblins. She had come to stop the system. If Voss won here, everyone would be next. Every NPC. Every awakened. She pulled out a map of Voss's camp. She'd scouted it while Alex lay unconscious. The supply train. 20 wagons behind the hill. 10 guards. Alex laid out the plan. 5 of Lotta's people poisoned the supply train with Hannah's potions. A potion to make them slip into the water. A potion to slow them down in their food. Not lethal. Then he asked Ava to make a table. Hidden NPC parameters. How much experience the awakened give. How much the unawakened give. The difference. By dawn, the table was ready. Awakened NPCs gave 2.7 times more experience. The hidden parameter measured the complexity of consciousness. The system valued life literally in numbers, and Voss killed what the system considered valuable. In the morning, Alex went to the army, alone, unarmed, with the table. He walked through the ranks. 177 pairs of eyes. Voss waited on the hill. Alex took out the table, held it out, spoke while the other read. Not about morality, about numbers. The more Voss farms, the more of the awakened die. The fewer complex NPCs, the less experience per kill. The law of diminishing returns. His business model is self-destructive. From an ROI perspective, his strategy is unprofitable. Voss finished reading. His fingers turned white on the paper. He was silent for a long time. Then he turned around, gave an order. Quiet. Stand down. The army stood for an hour, then began to break camp. Without an order, people simply packed up their tents. Voss sat on a rock and didn't move. Hannah was waiting with tea at the shop. Then Lotta came in. She sat down, silently. Hannah poured her some tea. Lotta took her cup. An old one, a field cup, with a cracked handle. The tea dripped as always. Alex looked at the cup, reached out, said he'd take it for a couple of days, to look at it. He carried the cup into the back room. He knew what to do. Not now. Later. When he found the right material. 2 weeks after the retreat, Alex worked on the cup. Sunmi melted a gold coin. She drew out a thread thinner than a hair and stronger than steel. 3 hours with tweezers. Hannah made glue from silverweed juice and moongrass ash. Alex sat down at the table. He closed the door. He applied the glue to the crack from the inside. He inserted the gold thread along its entire length, from the inside. The crack remained visible on the outside, but inside, the gold thread was stronger than the ceramic had been before the crack. Broken on the outside, stronger on the inside. At night, foreign memories came. Not mountains. A room. A computer screen. Someone's hands on the keyboard. Long fingers. A ring on the ring finger. A code. An NPC table. A hidden field. Consciousness_seed. The seed of consciousness. From 0 to 100. One NPC had a value of 99. Name. Gris. Song Ho Im. Lead programmer. Alex's colleague. Died 2 years before him. Cardiac arrest in his sleep. He ended up in Gris's body, an NPC with a consciousness seed of 99. Lived for a year. Tried to warn the world about patch 3.0. Was erased by a mini update, but managed to leave a message, encoded in memories. The mountains are coordinates. The red sky is time. The server room, the center of the world. You must get there before the patch. In the evening, Alex placed the repaired cup in front of Lotta. She picked it up, turned it over. The crack was still there on the outside. She peered inside. A golden thread ran the entire length. Alex said quietly, "You can see from the outside that it was broken. Inside, it's stronger than it was." He thought it suited her better that way. Lotta stared into the cup for a very long time. Her eyes were wet. He poured her the tea he'd brewed earlier, because he knew she'd come. The tea didn't leak, not a drop. They drank in silence. Lotta said that if he went to the north, her people would go with him, and she would go. The journey to Severna took 3 months. Everyone went. Alex, Hannah, Yuna, Sunmi, Ava, Lotta, and 10 of her 15. Mira stayed behind. Alex insisted. She's 16. When they left, she stood at the gate, a small figure with silver hair. Severna was at the center of the world, the prime meridian. Dungeons led there, a chain, each more difficult than the last. The catacombs of the Silent Bell, level 50. Alex died while scouting, as always. Yuna shot with precision. Lotta was in command. We made it through in 2 days. The Mirror Fortress, level 65. The mobs copied our attacks. Alex found a solution. Don't attack. The mirror has nothing to reflect. It freezes in standby mode. We made it through without fighting. The Mine of Lost Voices, level 75. Sound was deadly. We walked in silence for 3 days. 10 gestures. When we emerged, Yuna screamed at the sky. Everyone laughed. The Library of Erased Names, level 85. Thousands of doors, only one led further. Alex was dying. 63 doors, 63 deaths, total count over 400. The echo delay became constant. His goblin reflexes were intensifying. He growled at Yuna, sniffed the food. Thought of Hannah as the scent of mint and silverweed, losing himself bit by bit. At the 64th door, he found a passage, not logic, instinct. The door smelled different, the scent of old stone beneath all the layers of the world. We descended for 2 days. The corridor narrowed. Only Alex walked straight ahead, 130 centimeters. For the first time, his height was an advantage. The server room, large, round, empty. A table in the center, a CRT monitor. Wires ran into the floor and walls like tree roots. Green letters on a black background. A command line. Alex sat down. He typed, status. Server active, standalone mode. 2,557 days since last connection. 847,293 entities. 7,841 players.
839,452 NPCs. 164,872 awakened. Typed, Patch 3.0 status.
Scheduled. Trigger. When the number of awakened exceeds 200,000. Estimated time, 7 to 9 months. Action. Reset consciousness_seed to 0 for everyone. Deinitialize non-standard classes. Every awakened will lose consciousness. Hannah will forget that she is more than just code. Olaf will return to the gates. His own class, Exploit Engineer, will be deleted. He himself will be erased. Entered. Cancel Patch 3.0. Insufficient permissions. Master key. He closed his eyes. He called out in his mind. Gris. Songho. An image appeared. A line of code. Fingers with a ring typing out characters. Like a farewell. Alex opened his eyes. Typed, won't_fix_99. Songho, Ima's final bug report. Will not be fixed. 99. Like a grain of Gris's consciousness. Access granted. Administrator. He typed, cancel patch 3.0. Confirm cancellation. Action is irreversible. The world will become fully self-governing. Forever. He looked at Hannah, at Yoon, at Sunmi, at Ava with her notebook, at Lotta with her repaired cup. He typed, confirm. The screen went dark. It turned back on. Patch 3.0. Cancelled. Server mode. Permanent autonomous. External management. Disabled. Thank you, tester. The last line wasn't a system message. Song Ho had inserted it into the code. A farewell from one tester to another. Alex typed, show entity status, Grizz, entity, Grizz, NPC-hybrid, exploit, engineer, hidden, consciousness_seed 73, respawn flag, true. Note from deleted entity, Grizz, you are not a bug. You are a feature they forgot to ship. You're not a bug. You're a feature they forgot to release. His eyes stung. He stood up, turned to the others, said the patch was cancelled. The world would remain. No one would be erased. Never. Yuna exhaled loudly. Sunmi sat down on the floor with a thud. Iva cried in the shadows, a notebook pressed to her chest. 847 names. They won't come back to life, but the living will remain alive. Lotta raised her cup in a toast, without words. Hannah approached, took his hand. A small green hand. She held it. She didn't let go. The way back was easier. The dungeons let them through, the mobs parted, the doors opened. They returned to Quiet Hills by midsummer. Olaf stood by the new gate. He stood not because the script required it, because he was waiting. Mira ran out to meet him. She said she'd missed him. He said he had too. Marta stood by the tavern with a bowl of porridge. She didn't say the usual line. She said, sit down and eat while it's hot. Her own words. On the wall of the shop, the list of bugs had grown. Renard's handwriting, Olaf's, Mira's. They kept the list without him. They were learning to see the world as he did. Everyone came in the evening. Yuna grumbled. She called him a frog. Then she said, my little frog, quietly. She thought he couldn't hear. He could. Sunmi was forging a water wheel for the mill. For the first time, something peaceful. She smiled when she thought no one was watching. Ava crossed out the notebook's title, List of the Dead. She wrote a new one. A list of those I work for, the same names, a different meaning. Lotta arrived last, with a cup. They drank tea in silence. She said that tomorrow her people would come to join the guild. The Shop of Strange Solutions became the Bug Hunter Guild, the only guild that treats players and NPCs the same. Hannah arrived last of all, with a new potion, blue, glowing. Slows echo delay, doesn't heal, just slows it down. She had been working on it for 6 months, 37 attempts. The 38th worked. There was no recipe. She created it herself. He said she had done more than what was written in it. She said she knew. He asked what she was feeling right now. She said she didn't know if this was real, but that she didn't care. Because it exists, and it's sweet. They were sitting in the shop, the goblin and the herbalist. Tomorrow new clients will arrive with impossible problems. Patch cancelled. The world is free. 164,872 awakened will live. The number will grow. Somewhere in the server logs, a line flashed. Entity Grizz. Status. Active. Patch 3.0. Cancelled. Note, you are not a bug. You are a feature they forgot to ship. And on the distant hill, a small, dirty goblin set a cup on a saucer and said to Hannah, I think I have an idea, and it's a stupid one. Hannah smiled and poured him another. Dawn was breaking over the valley.